I think this is a great question because it offers a lot of ideas for improvisation. And without having to know much about like scales and chords, but really just knowing about positions and looking at the neck in like kind of a position mindset. And so the way that I've broken this down is into 4 different positions. So he asked about thirds and about sixths. So there are 2 different sixth positions and there are 2 different thirds positions. And so if we just start off in the key of C, this is kind of like our lowest chord on the neck, and we all know our C chord right here. We can break this C chord down into all of our groups, all 4 of our groups of thirds and sixths. So we're going to start out with our first sixth position. So this is a minor sixth. You don't really need to know if it's a minor or major sixth. These are all based on chord position. So you have your C chord here, and then if you just take off your ring finger and you isolate the 4th string and the 2nd string, that's a minor sixth interval. And so you don't need to know, like I said, that it's called a minor sixth. It's just the distance between those 2 notes from this note, that E note, to the C note is a minor sixth interval. So a really easy thing to do using a sixth position like this is to move it up chromatically from one position to the next. So our target position now is our bar chord. And so if you take away the elements that are not the 4th and the 2nd string, the 4th and the 2nd string, you have this position. So what we're going from is this to this. So all of the notes that we're playing in this specific sixth position are on the 4th and the 2nd string. So what we can do now, and this is commonly heard in blues, and I'll show you like a Indian lick for a blues, but what we can do now is move chromatically from one position to the next. So you have this C chord, and then you're going to move to this sixth position, which is 3rd fret, 4th string, and then you're moving that up, and then you're moving that up, and you're landing here. So the really cool thing about this, when you're doing 1, 4s, and 5 chords, is that if you start over on your F chord, so remember this is our F shape, if you start over right here, you can do that same exact position starting on your F chord. And so if you can start on your F chord right there, then using your knowledge about positions, you can go up to a G chord and then and do this pattern basically in any key, wherever you want to on the banjo, but this is just utilizing the 1, 4, and 5 chords in the key of C. So I'll do that one more time for you. That is a C, and then F chord, and then a G chord. And then you could even start over. So if you're improvising, you can exclusively use these chromatic passing tones and these chord positions for a blues progression. So if it's like going to the F, I'm now going into a G7, but if I was using the regular G chord, or something like that. Does that make sense? Like using the positions, obviously I'm not expecting you to improvise like that right now. I mean, you need to practice it, of course, but position-wise, does that make sense? So I wrote some notes on this, and I even wrote down a 30-minute routine, and I will definitely share this with y'all so you can download it on the website. But what I wrote was, as a beginner, your goal should be to learn repertoire and to use those songs as a framework for practicing backup and timing skills. This will help give you a foundation for learning by ear and going to jam sessions with more confidence. And I wrote down 4 things that beginners should focus on. 1, timing. 2, backup. 3, kickoffs and endings in different positions, G, C, and D. And then 4, playing with other people. So for timing, just to kind of go over that real quick, for timing, practicing roll patterns and songs with the metronome. And I think if you're just getting started, like if it's your first week of playing an instrument, I don't think it's anybody's first week here, but we could all probably benefit from some metronome practice. But a great thing that you can do is you can put on the metronome and you can just play roll patterns and try to improvise using roll patterns without your left hand at all. This is actually something that Mike Mumford does, is he'll like put on the metronome or just keep it off, but I think he alternates between, and he'll just play roll patterns and improvise. And I think that's such a cool thing to do because it helps you focus on the metronome, the timekeeping machine, without having to get bogged down with things that you're doing or technical stuff that you're doing in your left hand. You can just focus on your right hand and locking in with that metronome. Backup, I said, learn how to vamp. That's important. That's like the essential skill for going to a jam session and being able to hang on is being able to vamp. So learn how to vamp and then just play simple roll patterns over the chords. That is a really great skill. And eventually you'll get to the point where you're going to start transcribing backup for Earl Scruggs, J.D. Crowe, and learning actual backup solos, as I like to call it. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start with vamping. You got to start with just using those closed position chords and rolling under them with simple roll patterns. And then kickoffs and endings in different positions. I talked about this in the previous Q&A, but G, C, and D are really the optimal positions for us to practice out of. And you want to be able to kick off a song in each key and also end the song in each key. And like I said, I talked about that in the previous Q&A. So you can go check out that there on Banjo by Ear. And then 4, of course, playing along with other people. Practice along to recordings at slow tempos to simulate playing with others. And this is a huge thing that like not enough people do, is play along with Earl Scruggs and the Foggy Mountain Boys and Bill Monroe and J.D. Crowe and the New South. Play along with these recordings. These are all the things that you should be practicing, not buying the next tab book that comes out. It's like we have everything that we need for basically free. It's kind of crazy. Like we have it all on YouTube. So yeah, I would say go on YouTube and listen to music. Like just turn it on, listen to music, and then play along with it. Regardless if you know the banjo solo or know the backup, just play along with the chords. Figure it out. Make it fun, you know, as if you're in a jam session. When I'm working on improvisation and I'm decided on a tune that I want to play, like Whiskey Before Breakfast, I definitely look at the chords, you know, so I'm saying, maybe just isolate the A section. And so I wrote down some notes for this, so you'll have this in the download, but I'll approach improvisation from one of the 3 chord tones in this chord. So for example, instead of playing the melody like, that's starting on the first note in the scale. That's starting on a D note. So maybe I would just try and create a pattern that I really like. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then kind of see where it goes. And then I'll jump back into the melody. So I'm creating something small. I'm creating something over one chord, and then I'm jumping back into the melody that I know. So this is helpful for creating different variations, but not just going all out crazy on like, like Ryan Kavanaugh would do, which is so cool. And I wish I could do that, but it's a little bit tamer than that. And it's a little bit along the lines of probably what the people here can do. You know, you come up with a line and then play the melody. Okay, so I started with that chord tone. So what if I started with the next chord tone in a D chord, which is an F sharp? So it created a completely different sound. It doesn't sound like the melody in the beginning like the other one did, but I am coming up with a different melody based on a chord tone in the chord. So it still sounds like I'm playing Whiskey Before Breakfast, or it sounds like I'm playing over the chord, which is a good thing. You want to sound like you know what you're doing, at least in the beginning. So I'm starting on that F sharp, and you can do it with open strings, or you could do it here. So we started on a D, we started on an F sharp. Now I'm going to start on an A and see where that takes me. And so, you can get as out sounding as you want, and you can kind of see, like, as long as I'm starting on that note, you know, chord tone, and I'm landing on the melody, I can play whatever I want in between. I mean, to a certain extent, if you're playing in time, that's the thing, and all jazz musicians will tell you this. It doesn't matter what notes you play. It really matters that you're playing in the groove, in the pocket. And if you're playing all the right notes outside of the pocket, it's going to sound like crap. But if you play all the wrong notes in the pocket, it'll sound like you know what you're doing. So you can play whatever you want, basically. But I know that's probably not what all of us want to do. We want to just make a simple variation on the melody. Lance, yeah, I'm using thumb and index on this.